You're going to show screen, Zach?
Oh, is it not sharing screen yet?
Nope.
Thank you for saying that.
There we go.
All right. I see a few people joining us right now. We're just going to give it a minute or two as more people trickle in.
Welcome, everyone.
I just noticed, Jenny, that you and I are wearing the same color shirt, and I just want to pretend like that's highly planned and like that
It's on
we meant.
our visual branding. Are you kidding me? That's no accident. Good to have you all here.
All righty. Well, we'd love it if you, while we're waiting for others to join, put your name, the organization you're joining from, where you're based, in the chat.
What you had for lunch? You know, whatever's on your mind. Just let us get to know you a little.
Oh, Ella put her name, but she did not tell us what she had for lunch.
St. Anne's School in Denver. How wonderful. Welcome.
Who smoked salmon? I want to have lunch with Ella. Nice.
Safe House Arts. Oh, right on. Welcome, Joe.
Well, in LA, all right, tuna sandwich. This recently came up in a conversation we were having that I have a tuna melt almost every week. And so, Mary, I'm kindred spirits here. Thank you. Well, Jenny, let's go ahead and get started. I know more people are going to continue to join us here. But let's go ahead and get started. And if you're looking at the screen here and you see that you're here to talk about cultural and market forces to watch, you are in the right place. That's what we're here to talk about. And let me make sure I can advance my slides. I am Zach Hochstadt. I'm joined here by my colleague and co-founder of Mission Minded, Jennie Winton. Delighted to be here with all of you. Jennie and I have been working together for the last 22 years or longer, because we first met one another working at the American Red Cross in the Bay Area chapter before starting Mission Minded a couple of years later. Jennie is a brilliant brand strategist and a leadership coach. And so I encourage you to, at the end of this session, follow up with her about coaching opportunities and ways that you can expand your own personal practice, as well as some of the things that you're going to learn here about how to expand your organizational practice. And I'm Zach. I'm one of the founders here, and Mission Minded is a strategy and creative firm that helps good causes have greater impact. So we believe that the organizations that make the world a better place should be unapologetically bold. And so at Mission Minded, that means that every day we ask the question, what if? Because that helps us unlock ways to be able to fire up your supporters. Because we know that when your community is united by magnetic ideas, they're going to stop at nothing to help you achieve extraordinary results. Over the years, we've had the pleasure of partnering with dozens and dozens of nonprofits and foundations and independent schools from around the country and increasingly around the world to help them elevate their brands, their campaigns, and other things. This is just a small sampling of some of the folks that we've had a chance to work with. And we've also been really fortunate to work with those organizations in lots of different ways. And so just a quick overview of the work that we do at Mission Minded. We're involved in strategic planning and brand strategy and messaging. We do admissions campaigns as well as capital campaign work. For those campaigns and on behalf of our clients, we create videos and websites and digital strategy. And as I mentioned before, leadership coaching is a part of our practice here as well.
Great. Well, today we have some big topics to go over. We're going to do an orientation on just what is brand, because we still believe it's a jargon term. We'll spend a few minutes on that so you can get excited about what it means for your organization. And then we want to go into some detail about the 7 market forces that we see that may be impacting your organization, your brand, and possibly your strategic plan. So we'll talk about that. And then we want to spend some time with your questions. So be thinking about what you would like to ask Zach and I while you have us today. We are going to reserve time at the end for an interactive Q&A. So don't be shy about bringing a really specific challenge or problem that relates to what we're teaching here, because we'd love to help you with it real time if we can.
Alrighty, thank you, Jenny. Hey, one other thing I want to acknowledge is that our colleague Bonnie Taylor is also here with us. She's not on screen, but she's behind the scenes helping to make sure that this goes well. And if you have any technical issues or any other questions, throw it in the chat, and Bonnie will be there to make sure that that gets answered. So as Jenny mentioned, we're going to talk for a moment about brand and make sure that we're all on the same page. And one of the reasons we want to do this is that oftentimes people think about brand just in terms of it being your logo or your name. But a logo or a name is just a symbol for a deeper idea. And at Mission Minded, we like to say that brand is a synonym for reputation, that ultimately brand is the sum of the ideas that come to mind when people think about who you are and who your organization is. And so you want to do everything you can to build that reputation, to make it as accurate as possible, and to resonate in a way that's going to help you achieve your goals. Another way of thinking about this is brand is a promise of a future experience. And so what promise are you making right now about what the future is going to look like when others engage with your organization? And one of the things we know about brand is that brand is reflected in a lot of different things that you do. And some of you have worked with us in the past or have engaged with us in the past. Careful observers may have noticed that we're launching our own new brand right now. And so you may have noticed the new logo that we were sharing right off the bat. But brand is reflected in lots of different ways in terms of how you look, how you sound, how you act, and what you do. So as we've thought about our own brand, we've not only thought about how it has come to life in terms of our new visual identity and the color palette and typography, but also in the messages that we share, the belief message that I shared right off at the beginning. It's also something we've considered in terms of how we act. How does it change our culture here? And how do we show up with clients in a way that can fulfill that brand promise? And ultimately, how it can guide the strategic decisions that we're making as a company, just as it works for you as you think about your own organization. One of the things we know then is that brand isn't just the responsibility, say, of your marketing director or even your executive director, that brand ultimately is the responsibility of every single person who is a part of your community, from a leadership role through staff, through your volunteers, that every one of you is an ambassador and you help bring your brand to life. And so then that makes us think about one brand that many of us know very well. So we're going to pause on Apple for a second. And I'm going to ask that you throw into the chat, if you think about the Apple brand, what are the hallmarks of the Apple brand? How do you know that an Apple product is an Apple product? What are some of the key elements that you expect from Apple? And please put that in into the chat. This is much more fun for all of us if it's participatory. So when you think about Apple, what are some of the key elements that come to mind? So Ella says right off the bat, it pushes design to its limit. So one of the things that Apple is known for is great design. And then Joe comes in and mentions intuitive, so ease of use. And these are things that you see in Apple products all over the world. It doesn't matter if we're talking about Apple software or hardware, the fact that they're in the TV business and the music business and the phone business and all of these things. All Apple experiences have those same hallmarks, which is great design, ease of use, that it's well engineered. And that they make sure that everything they do, including like the elevator at their Midtown Manhattan store, has those hallmarks of the brand. And so you can see that great brands are guided by that brand strategy, by that brand idea, and it gets reflected in every single experience that you have. It's not about the products, it's about the bigger experience. Another way of thinking about this is your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. This was said by Jeff Bezos. We don't really want to think about what people say about Jeff Bezos when he's not in the room, but we do acknowledge that this is a great quote that helps us remember that brand is just an idea. It's a shortcut of an idea, and it's what comes to mind when we think about a particular company or organization.
Zach has just referenced two behemoth brands, Apple and Amazon. And we want to just reassure you at this moment that even though those are big brands with lots of resources, every single thing that they do well is something that your organization can do well also to benefit from having a strong brand. So don't feel overwhelmed by those examples. The best practices apply to you no matter what the size of your organization or what type of organization you are. Once you have your strong brand, you will benefit in many ways. And one of them is that a strong brand helps you make a real relationship with your key audiences. Even before you know them, they know you. Clarity in brand will help people feel closer to you, and that's its value. Another benefit is a strong brand will help you with competition. It really minimizes the threat of competition. When you stand for something unique and valuable that your constituents care about, they're with you and they're loyal to you. And of course, that's what you need, no matter what kind of organization you are. Another benefit of having a strong brand is that it makes you a better collaborator. And this is interesting, no matter what kind of organization you are, when you stand for something unique that you do, it helps other organizations know if they can collaborate with you. And if you're in active collaboration, it helps you know what the boundaries are of what your contribution should be versus others. So this is true for foundations and for nonprofit organizations and even independent schools who do cross-campus collaborations from time to time. Knowing who you are helps set the boundaries there. Another benefit of having a strong brand is that when negative news, and I say news in air quotes, it could be anything that gets online about you happens, or even a sort of rumor within your community, your volunteers, whatever it might be, your strong brand will help you bounce back and recover from that so much quicker than if people don't really trust to know what you stand for. And every organization has these things that happen from time to time, but the stronger your brand, the better positioned you'll be to withstand those troubling moments. A strong brand is also just going to make it easier for people to choose you. They're going to just say yes when you ask them. Do you want to come on a campus tour? Do you want to consider a donation? Will you volunteer? Will you join us? When you stand for something, people say, yeah, I want to do that because I know you and it's good to be part of you. A strong brand also, if you're a foundation, helps extend the impact of your grant beyond the dollars. Foundations with a strong brand essentially, infer credibility on their grantees and other collaborators. So if any foundation folks are on the call, this is another reason for you to invest in a good brand strategy. And finally, a strong brand, this is something to take away. This is one of our most important points that really can elevate how you communicate starting today. Your brand should be built on a set of benefits, outcomes, achievements, things that happen as a result of your organization, not on your features. And features are programs. Programs are what you do every day, but your brand should be built on the ultimate outcome for a group of constituents or the world. So that's something for you to be thinking about and when it comes to how you can leverage and why you should think about branding at your organization.
Jenny, this feels like a place like maybe you would share the dog leash example.
Sure, I'll do that. Real quick here, one of the ways to think about this differently than you might have, or a way to remember it when you're not sitting here saying, well, yeah, that makes sense, is that if I was here, Zach just gave the punchline away, but if I was here to sell you a dog leash, and I walked in and I said, okay, I have a new product for you. I'm not telling you what it is, but it's 6 feet long and it has a hook and it has a loop on one end. If I just named those features, not only would you not want it, you would have no idea what it is. And that's what we do in the nonprofit sector often, is that we're so proud of our programs. That's what we talk about day to day, the features of what we do, instead of connecting them to an ultimate benefit for your community. And so if I came instead and said, hey, I have a new product that'll help you keep your dog safe and help you know that your dog is not bothering anyone and is always safely with you, suddenly you might have interest in my product, the dog leash, because you can see how it would benefit you. You probably wouldn't even care about the details at that point. How long the leash is, how big the loop, what the hook is made of. You might not care at all because you're really just signing up for the benefits.
So we're going to talk for a little bit now about what's going on in the world that may cause you to reevaluate your brand, to take a look and say, what's my organization currently known for? What is our reputation? And what's going on that might cause us to need to lean into certain elements of our brand more, let go of parts of our brand, or to reconsider parts of our brand. And there's a whole lot going on right now that might cause you to think about those things. We're going to walk you through some of them and some of the things that caused us to reflect in terms of our own rebranding as well.
Yep. And this is really what you signed up for. So let us dig right into what we're seeing that's going on that might impact your organization. So, when we founded Mission Minded, we built our reputation, our brand, with geographic emphasis. We started in San Francisco. We extended into Denver. We saw ourselves as a San Francisco, Denver organization. And we were geographically bound, even though we've always been a fully remote team without a physical headquarters. Our virtual nature gave us an early advantage as organizations across the country and now even the world recognized our expertise. So we were physically rooted, but we realized that was a little bit limiting because actually we can serve people, and we do. We have team members now and clients all over the world. The market has evolved so much that we find dozens and dozens of comparison firms that are working in the space that Mission Minded helped create branding for nonprofits. So now you'll find an abundance of strategic and creative expertise in the nonprofit sector, the education sector, and they're all just one click away on the web. A nonprofit in Texas might be checking out a website of a strategy firm in Idaho and another one in New York. And in that context, we knew that at Mission Minded, our own brand had to stand for something more than just brand expertise. So many of you on this call are in that exact same boat. Many nonprofit organizations, and particularly post-secondary education institutions, find yourselves in the same similar situation because your earliest supporters and students may have come from a specific geographic territory. Your programs, your expertise were likely the only game in town. But now your audiences, the ones most important for your future success, can find dozens of alternate similar providers via a search on Google. And you may have been a trailblazer at one time in what you did, but now you're just in a field of copycats. And this is true even if you're a small organization in a small town and you think that you're geographically based. I'll give you an example that an organization that I have supported, an immigrant rights organization. I'm based in California, but I found this great organization that's based in Arizona, and I've been supporting them. There are probably many great immigration organizations in my backyard, but that's not who I found, and that's not who resonated with me. So no matter how you may think that you're still truly safe in your geography, it's good to take a look at this. The key question is really, what makes you distinctive? What can your organization really own and stand for that's of value to the kind of people most likely to care what you do? And then what's the opportunity for you to leapfrog ahead? So if you're thinking of yourself as just a local or regional organization, think again.
And I'll build on what Jenny was saying that what makes you distinctive is likely not the feature, going back to what she was saying about the dog leash, but probably rests in the benefits that you're providing. What is the higher level thing that you're delivering on? So the next thing that we would say is a market factor that you need to be paying attention to is that your audiences expect more as well. So another facet of our market that drove our brand's evolution is the increased expertise and sophistication of our clients. Leaders and professionals working within nonprofits and foundations, and associations, and in schools have watched and learned, adopting the brand and marketing strategies from the corporate world. So 25 years ago, we spent a lot of time educating folks about what a nonprofit brand was and why it mattered. And since then, the appreciation and the value and the necessity for a strong brand has grown significantly. So the wealth of free education resources available allows more people with any interest to research strategic frameworks, to message best practices, to do more. And so we now, when we go to work with clients, we begin that conversation at a more advanced level. And as a result, we've seen our partnerships get stronger from that because our clients are bringing their own expertise and experience to the table. What's important is that same trend that we're seeing in terms of how we're working with our clients is affecting your community members in the same way. They're coming in more knowledgeable as well. And so that means that you both need to up your game and meet them where they are, but there's also a huge opportunity that rests in that as well. I mean, first, because there's so much knowledge and so many tools out there, other organizations in your space have likely strengthened their brands. So you've got a more competitive set going on around you. They've developed savvier strategic plans, they've executed compelling communications campaigns, and so your competition is probably stiffer than it was before, which means if you hope to invite more people into your cause or your community, it's more important than ever that you be really clear about what makes you unique and how you stand out from the crowd. I think the second thing to think about here is that your audiences are coming to you more knowledgeable and educated about the work that you do than they may have been in the past. They've probably scrolled through a stream of blog posts and podcasts. They're thinking about the trend as a whole. They may have advisors that they have access to. They certainly have more publications, and they have your website to understand you better as well. So they're bringing different questions and challenges than you may have received in the past. So your organizational strategies, your communication approaches, your leadership style all need to reflect a changing relationship with your audiences. They've upped their game, so you need to up your game as well.
Great, thank you, Zach. So Black Lives Matter and other social change movements have successfully focused worldwide attention on the structural racism and injustice that permeate and persist in our culture. That is a good thing. And like many other organizations, Mission Minded has reflected in our own work and how we might contribute to and uphold harmful, racist, and marginalizing power dynamics. We've looked hard at that. We've been really honest with ourselves. And we've made commitments to positive change and more equitable practices. This goes to what Zach was showing you about how you act is part of your brand. So our own updated brand and messages further our commitment of dismantling racism and exclusivity and of every kind, marginalization. We're committed to doing that by uplifting collaboration and inclusion as central to our thinking. So the expansion of the ways we share power and co-create with our clients and our communities is something we think about. We're really in the business of asking for ourselves what we can do better and helping our clients do better as well. That's what DEI means to our organization. It's quite frankly better to be thinking this way. It's more relevant and impactful than simply signaling our solidarity with a policy statement. So again, for your organization, I'm sure that by now your nonprofit or school has been called upon to confront your own biases and inequities. Again, that's a good thing. From boardroom diversity to representation in marketing to recalibrating your programs and your operations, your own foundational strategies need to reflect a commitment to equity and inclusivity so that it's woven into like much more than you say, but actually what you do programmatically, how you act and what choices you make as an institution. So DEI is spoken about all the time, but the real question today is how can your organization be made more relevant? And frankly, if you're not thinking about these ideas, you will become irrelevant if you haven't already. All right, speaking about what brands really do and how they deliver, one through line of much of the above that we've already talked about is that strategic branding has been a wildly successful way for nonprofits and schools to advance their missions. To further capitalize on the full potential of a brand, you have to see your brand as much more than marketing. It's an organizational North Star to guide your way. So again, how you look and how you act and how you sound and what you do. So at Mission Minded, we've been talking for years about brand activation and why strong brands have to not just know how they're going to talk about themselves differently, but really decide, what they're going to do. So we actually changed what we did as part of our own new brand. Our new brand, by the way, takes us from being brand strategy experts in the nonprofit sector to that strategic partner that helps our clients elevate beyond farther than they ever thought that they could go. And so that's why we decided to grow our own offerings to incorporate strategic planning and leadership coaching. Those are not services that we had, but when we looked at our brand and the promise we were making, we saw that that was a hole in ways that we could be delivering to our clients more. And by the way, our vision at Mission Minded is that the organizations and people that make our world better have what you need to succeed. And that was another reason that adding strategic planning and coaching, made sense. But what we see and what we want you all to be thinking about for your organization is that too many nonprofits invest in creating a brand strategy, and they think about it as maybe their visual cues, their new logo, perhaps some great new messaging, maybe a new website, but really neglect to deliver on the brand execution piece of it. So thinking about this, when you align your own organization's brand with your strategic plan, that really can tell a story about your organization through an elevated structure that gets everyone excited in your organization. Instead of just retelling the operational business of what you do, your brand and your strategic plan together can change what you do. And as I said, it creates a story that helps get your community excited. So the point here is how to have a stronger brand and what needs to change. And the real thing here is your brand has to deliver more than just some beautiful visuals or messaging. And when people are more excited about what you do and you're delivering in all the ways that you can as an organization, your brand makes more sense to them and they're more likely to engage. So the takeaway for you from everything that we've done here at Mission Minded, all right, we're using our own brand to kind of be instructive to you today. The addition of strategic planning and coaching for us was to live into our brand fully. For you, what else do you have to do to live more fully into your brand? To think of branding as more than just a marketing idea, but one that your whole leadership commits to living and activating every day. All right, so thinking about your audiences, by the way, brand is always created for your audiences. And your strategies always have to put them at the center. So nonprofits and schools often navigate a delicate balance between upholding your values and maintaining support. So when you take a stand, for example, on a contentious issue, you risk alienating some of your audiences who may hold different views. And I'm sure you've all experienced that already. You only need to take a quick scan at the day's headlines to see how this plays out on a university campus. And we recently hosted a webinar, actually Zach did, that explored if and how organizations should speak up and speak out. So we'll send you a link to that so you can watch it later. But here's the thing, if your organization resolves to double down on your values, you may need to reconsider if and from where you'll lose support. And I know that's kind of a sobering idea, but that consideration is not to weaken your commitment, but instead to identify what new audiences you might need to attract and engage as you're willing to say no to people who don't like what you're standing for. We've been working with a lot of community foundations around the country, and many of them are strategically shifting their focus and their brands to make a greater impact on things like racial and economic justice. And to stay true to this new strategy, they're creating new policies, for example, about where donor-advised funds can even be granting funds. And in this environment, community foundations can expect some donor-advised fund holders who aren't aligned with their new positioning and values to choose to move their funds elsewhere. And if that happens, replacing that funding means that they will have to prioritize new audiences, such as maybe community giving circles or other audiences that share their goals. So if there are current audiences who don't align with your organization's values, and you should be putting your values front and center unabashedly, then you're going to need to seek out new audiences whose values are aligned. Because if your brand and messages make claims to values that some supporters don't share, you will lose their trust, but the trust of others will be gained. But be careful not to, if you're not living into those values, the people who are really paying attention will say, well, you're saying this, but you're not living into the value. So you have to say what you believe and stick by it and be ready to find the donors who match your ideals.
So last week, I was at a roundtable conversation. There are 8 people sitting at this table with me. And of the 8 people there, 7 of them, excluding myself there, they were all new to their organizations. All of these different comms and brand professionals sitting around the table, every single one of them was brand new within their organization within the past year. And not only that, the executive directors with whom they were working were also new to their organizations. Well, the Great Resignation might be winding down, but we now have this new phenomenon, this new challenge that so many of the people inside organizations are new within those roles, that they're seeing themselves in some ways in startup mode inside organizations that have been existing for quite a long time. So if you've seen staff churn at any level, or you suspect you have employed more than a few quiet quitters, like now is the right time to fine tune and revitalize your brand. There's a few reasons for that. One of them is that with all that new staff, they're learning for the first time really who you are and what you stand for. And going through that branding process is one of the best ways of getting people to invest deeply in what you care about and to fire them up and get them energized about that work. Now, I'm saying fine tune, revitalize. Your brand strategy is the reputation that you're seeking to build and shape with your most important audiences. And so that may mean that you are just like tweaking a couple things, or it might mean that you have to take a big step back and take a real fresh look. So does your brand resonate with your current internal team? Will it attract and build the talent that you need to have to have greater impact? And what needs to change or what needs to evolve in order for you to do so? So right now, this is like the critical time to make sure that your brand ambassadors, your staff, that they understand, that they buy into, and that they feel ignited by your brand. And that begins with using your brand as the frame for staff orientation, and it continues with employee-focused initiatives like organizational culture building, and even in your performance reviews. And I'll say at Mission Minded, one of the things that we've done as we've launched our own new brand is we have a new, elevator pitch or belief message, that, as we call it around here. And we start every week, our weekly meeting, we spin a wheel. We call it the wheel of cookie because it's shaped like a cookie. And if your name comes up, three things happen. One, you get to go buy yourself a cookie. Two, you're in charge of facilitating the meeting that day. But three, and most importantly, you have to, from memory, be able to recite our belief message. And it's one of the ways that we've made it fun, but also a requirement that everyone inside our team knows that message and can recite it well. And so we encourage you to adopt similar strategies.
Just to be clear, everyone gets to go buy themselves a cookie on the Mission Minded credit card.
That's an important thing. And we encourage all of you, and not on our credit card, but we encourage all of you to go buy yourself a cookie when this session's over. All right, one last thing that we're looking at is a market force that we all need to be paying attention to, is that AI is here. It is here for both good and for bad. We're going to see it, and I know that there's been a lot of webinars recently. I know ComNet had some about how artificial intelligence can become a part of your communications practice and might create some efficiencies in what you're doing. But we also have to recognize that AI-driven deepfakes have also sparked widespread distrust in institutions of all kinds. And so with these technologies producing increasingly convincing synthetic media, the line between reality and fabrication is blurring significantly. So news outlets, governments, activists, advocates are facing scrutiny as the content authenticity is being questioned right now. So your audience's confidence has suffered as their skepticism has deepened. And digital content is just one of the facets of this crisis that's magnified and compounded as we go through a political campaign and other polarization, and we're going to see more and more of it this year. So what this means is that, oops, I advanced my slide. Technical solutions and media literacy efforts can work to address part of this void of disinformation and distrust, but there's something even more important that you can do, and that's to rekindle trust and to reforge some of your most important relationships. One of the things we know is that now is a time in which communication tools and tactics that reinforce your authenticity matter more than ever. So now is the time for those handwritten notes. Now is the time to invest in print over digital at certain times. That to create that piece that shows up in the mail has a greater authenticity and a greater sense of reliability than something that's seen on the web. Make your phone calls and make those personal connections. Invite more people into those meetings with your team and with your organization, and build those communities, because people are going to be seeking greater senses of authenticity and reliability than they ever have before. So trust gets rebuilt in legacy organizations when you have a vision for the future. And it also gets built when you share it with your community. So this may also be a time to embark on that next strategic plan and to refresh your brand, because these are two big picture ways that you are helping to rebuild that trust and make things happen. So we really encourage you to think about those big initiatives that you can double down on, as well as some of those smaller things on your day-to-day communications that are going to rebuild the trust in the time of AI.
And by the way, we know that not everyone on this call will have the resources to hire consultants necessarily to do that, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing it. There are ways to level up your strategic plan and make it bigger and stronger and more visionary. And there are ways to do that with your branding and messaging too. You don't necessarily have to use consultants. And we have lots of free resources on our website for just how to do that. There are recordings of workshops like this. There are a lot of how-tos and marketing guides. So we want you to help yourself to those, and they're all free, and we want them to be instructive to you. We're going to have a little Q&A here, and at the very end, we're going to offer you a little gift just for those people that are here today. So we're planning to end in about 10 minutes. So we just want to spend a minute right now having you go off mute and ask what came up for you, hearing what Zach and I presented. What questions are coming to you about your specific organization? And we really mean it. Bring your juicy, gnarly challenges. We're here. We want to be valuable to you. So we intentionally reserved this time to have this be interactive. So who wants to ask a question?
And you are welcome to use the chat if it doesn't feel comfortable to take yourself off mute and turn your camera on. But you are also invited to take yourself off mute and just ask that question. I think there's a manageable number of people here, so don't worry that you're going to talk over somebody else if you unmute yourself.
And don't be shy. You've got us here. You might as well take advantage of it. And if it's not a particularly juicy challenge that you came here with or that you have, just what's some of your reactions to what you heard us share today? Come on, people.
While people are thinking about that, Bonnie, I feel like there was one question that we knew was going to be coming here. Could you throw that into the chat for us?
Zach, you're so right. Let me do that right now.
Or if you want to read it off, that's fine as well.
I can go ahead and read it off. There was a question that came to me specifically about donors. How do you cultivate new donors who share your values? I feel like that's a big concern that both of you could address.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. Yeah, we kind of put it out there. It's just go ahead and do it. Here's how you do it. The answer is almost in the question. When your organization has values that you stand for, not just something that are is on the walls of your organization, but values that everyone knows and everyone uses day to day to make decisions in how they do their jobs and how you make decisions institutionally, making those values really plainly known to your constituents is the way for people who value what you value to see you and find you and recognize that you're for them. And so this may mean looking at different kinds of donors and trying to communicate with different kinds of donors than you typically have. We are moving away in the spirit of more inclusivity. We have helped our clients move away, for example, from thinking about your target audiences demographically, where they live, how much they make, how old they are, and instead thinking about what they value and organizing your value, your audiences through what they value allows you to really clearly telegraph to them, we value this too. Let us show you how our values are aligned with your values. And the reason that's an equity play is because it helps you avoid stereotypes that might leave people out. Someone who's a low-level donor might care just as much of value as a multi-million-dollar donor. And you get to talk to them with the same kind of messaging about values. It makes your job easier, it's more inclusive, and it's much more effective on inviting people in. So yeah, it can't be sort of a cloaked thing. A strong brand and strong strategic plan all rest on your values being front and center.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm going to move on. There's a couple of great questions that have popped up here, and I'm going to start with Layla, who said, not a challenge, but I love the idea of doubling down on authenticity. And I do too. And I want to say, we run brand workshops with many of our clients, and oftentimes one of the exercises is to do some work around brainstorming organizational values. And I'll say with pretty much every client we work with, authenticity, it becomes one of the brand values that is offered up. And I would say that that's almost table stakes at this point, that is, every organization needs to have authenticity as one of the things that they value and care about. You may not need to articulate it explicitly as an organizational value, because it's a requirement of the work that we do, that we all need to be trustworthy. We all need to be authentic. We all need to be real as we show up if we care about the communities that we're serving. And so finding communication tools to bring that authenticity to life is all the more important right now. Jenny, I'm going to share with you a question from Will that maybe you'll answer, which is, it comes in two parts. As the pros, what's your take on market research determining the rebranding process? And can you have too many cooks in the process? And another way of saying that is, more clearly maybe, what are the risks of getting responses from more extreme voices in the process, shaping who you see yourself as?
Yeah, great question, Will. So we have a strong point of view on research at Mission Minded. And because all of our clients are nonprofits and foundations and organizations that have less marketing budget than, say, Apple, we have always been very strategic and conscientious about how to spend the most, not just money, but time for an organization to get the research that you need. And so in the name of inclusivity, which is incredibly important, you do actually want to survey as many people as you possibly can. And you can do this very inexpensively via, web-based tools. Yes, there's a lot of sophistication on how you create a good survey that gets you what you need, but that's a topic for another day. Err on the side of more inclusivity. The more voices that you bring in, the better. The other good news about the more voices is that you can start to see how they separate out on a strata. So maybe the most extreme voices on either end are 10% of the respondents who, hate you or think you should move this way, or love you and think you shouldn't change a thing. But the moderated middle is usually where the opportunities come from. So it can be tempting to get a negative comment or a strong recommendation from research and feel like you have to respond to that. But one anecdote, one opinion does not a strategy make. When we do research for our clients, we're doing lots of different kinds of research so that we can look for the trends and the patterns that emerge across everything that we're studying. So I hope that's helpful.
Great. I'm going to take a question that Joe put into the chat, which is a question of, what ratio of time should micro-organizations spend on branding versus doing the actual mission? And you're balancing that you've got a tiny budget, small staff. How do you integrate that? And, this makes me think about the life cycle of an organization. That many organizations, if you'll imagine what I'm drawing with my finger here is sort of a hill, like a curve that comes up and it reaches some level of plateau and then starts to come down a little at the end. And organizations at the beginning that are in startup mode are just starting to define themselves, and they maybe have a good idea and a way of operating. And then if that has some success, they move into an adolescent part of organizational growth. And just like human adolescence, this is a time where things are changing rapidly, where you are going through lots of different identities and trying different things on and figuring things out before you start to move into a level of maturity. After a long period of maturity, an organization may start to go through a period of decline, and there becomes a sort of a split, a difficult decision to make at that point. Does that organization go into decline and then demise, or does it come back into adolescence and reinvent itself? And so if you're an organization that is still in startup mode, or you're even in adolescence, you should be asking these questions about your identity, but you should also know that you're likely to go through a lot of rapid changes and shifts. And so I would encourage you, that you need to be efficient and use your budgets really wisely as you're in startup modes, that you're oftentimes you do want to make important decisions around what your brand is and start to cement things. And at the same time, it's organizations that are in a greater sense of maturity that have the budgets and the luxury of thinking more deeply about these things. So in those early phases, make your decisions quickly, start to solidify. As you become more mature as an organization, allow those things to solidify for longer periods of time.
I'm going to take a couple questions over here from the chat. And by the way, we're supposed to end in a minute, and we'll probably go just a couple minutes over. And then Zach and I are happy to stay longer if anyone wants to stay on and dig in further. So Ellen is new to her organization, new to independent schools. How can she get to know the organization's brand? I'm sorry that your organization doesn't have brand understanding as onboarding. That is a best practice that we recommend and help our clients do. So in the absence of that, first of all, ask. There might be something about the brand that exists, but really understanding the brand and what you see it to be. I don't know what your job is there, but, watching and asking around, reading strategic documents, kind of be a researcher. As if you were in charge of creating the brand, what would you want to know to start about how the brand is? Michael asks about how to get people to think about brand moving beyond just logo and program. Michael, we have something on our website. We have a free guide, questions to ask about a brand project, I think, and probably something called Your Logo Isn't Your Brand. So nose around there. We publish those things for people just like you who want to take what you know and share it with your colleagues. So you can ask them to do some reading, and hopefully that'll give you some talking points and a resource to share. Great. We have one more question. Whoa. Actually, I think, yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap now. Is that what you're going to say, Zach? Yeah, just in the interest of keeping our commitment here. This was an experiment, by the way, doing 45 minutes. We wanted to make this even easier to attend. So I hope you all liked it. But as I said, Zach and I will stick around. If you'd like to ask more questions, Will, I see you've asked another one. We can get to that. We just wanted to offer, and we'll be sending you an email tomorrow that gives you a recording of this. So again, you can share that with any colleagues you think might benefit from learning about these cultural and market forces. And for any of you who would like to schedule a session with me or Zach to chew on any of these issues at your organization, we are happy to offer you a session free of charge. And related to that, if any of you are thinking about having a leadership coach, I would also be very happy to offer you complimentary sessions. You can see if getting coaching from me is the right thing, or just learn about coaching. I can tell you more about it in case you want to keep your search going. As I said, our vision is that all of you have what you need to succeed. And so we do these webinars and complimentary sessions because we're trying to lift up the whole sector. So take advantage of that. That goes for anyone who's watching this later too. If you'd like to schedule time with us, we'll give you a link to do that in the email that you receive tomorrow. Thank you,
everybody.
All right. Why don't we stop recording, Bonnie, and we can stick on if I see Will has a question. Thanks, everybody.
In fact, for the couple of people that are just sticking around, we would say, turn your camera on. Take yourself off mute. Let's just talk.
If you want. Or if you're still wearing your pajamas, no pressure. Okay, Will is asking.